This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2018 dark comedy titled Game Night. Now, Game Night runs for 1 hour and 40 minutes long. It is directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. It is produced by John Davis, John Fox, Jason Bateman, and James Garavante, better known as 4J. Get it? Because all four of their names start with the letter J? Alright, all kidding aside. Okay. The script was written by Mark Perez. The score was done by Cliff Martinez. The cinematography by Barry Peterson. And it was edited by Jamie Gross, Gregory Plotkin, and David Egan. And the stars of the movie are Jason Bateman, Rachel MacAdams. We also have Billy Magnussen, Sharon Horgan, Lamorne Morris, Kylie Bunbury. We have Jesse Plemons. We got Chelsea Peretti, Danny Huston, Michael C. Hall, Jeffrey Wright, Malcolm Hughes. Also, directors John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein also have some cameo appearances too as well. And I guess you could say the scene stealer in this movie, definitely Kyle Chandler. So the story of Game Night goes a little something like this. Game Night centers around an enthusiastic group of sociable partygoers who just love to play games just for the sake of competition, whether it be gambling, whether it be just playing a simple game of cards, charades, anything. They usually every Friday night gather around friends for a fun time of gaming and socializing and just, for the sake of having fun, because let's face it, isn't that what competition is about? Competition is about having fun. It's not about, trying to see who's better or who's worse or trying to oust or usurp anyone. They invite, they have their little circle of friends to come over to their house to play games. And they just seem to just live that kind of lifestyle. But somehow, one night, this one time they eventually ended up playing a game that unexpectedly gets them trapped in a world of danger as the game progresses. The film starts to play off sort of as a lighthearted comedy, but then it escalates into more darker territory where the fun becomes more macabre. The first half of the movie is pretty much lighthearted humor, but then as the film progresses, the film kind of like shifts from a lighthearted comedy to a much more darker, more suspenseful movie. But at least I'll say one thing, it does actually balance out quite well. Under the penmanship of Mark Perez and directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, the scenes are definitely always unpredictable to the point where it becomes surprisingly intense, but the scenes are always entertaining and never once does it ever meander. The leading couple are Max and Annie Davis, played by Jason Bateman and Rachel MacAdams, who gets the neighbors or their circle of friends to participate in their nightly games they set up. Their marriage was brought on due to games. That is implied by the opening montage. Simple, fun board games like Scrabble or Pictionary, or even just improv games like charades and more. The participants in their games include Annie's airheaded friend Ryan, Huddle, played by Billy Magnussen, who seems to be somewhat of a womanizer. He always seems to have different dates that he takes on for these games. This time he's brought along an intellectual Irish girl named Sarah Darcy, played by Sharon Horgan, who's Ryan's date, who seems to be quite intelligent. Maybe it's just the accent, but she seems to be somewhat, has a pretty good head over her shoulders. And then we have a married couple named Kevin and Michelle Sterling, played by Lamorne Morris and Kylie Bunbury, who are a husband and wife pairing. And Mac's distant but very rich brother Brooks, played by Kyle Chandler, who wants to host game night at his estate, a place that he is temporarily renting. So while at the house, Brooks gets his guests involved in an interactive role-playing mystery game, and he kind of places a bit of a wager. What kind of a wager? Well, whoever can solve the mystery will be rewarded with his prized stingray. The kind of game he plays kind of like pays homage to the old school murder mystery dinner parties that were quite popular in the 80s. I mean, if you've ever been to one of these murder mystery type parties, you could tell that it's usually often the atmosphere is very tense. We all sort of seem to be somewhat suspects to whoever caused the murder. And usually, sometimes it often ends with the person who you least expect to actually be the murderer. We all are guilty. We all have evidence that leads to us being suspected of the murder. But in the end, it turns out that the one who you think is the most suspect eventually ends up turning out to be the one who isn't the one that's the most suspect. I mean, you may think it's the butler, but in the end, it might turn out to be the friendly nanny. It's usually always that kind of thing. Or it could be the extroverted social party animal that might be the guilty one. But in the end, it was probably just the shy introvert who you least expect. That's what you always expect to see in these kind of murder mystery dinner parties. They're usually fun, they're innovative, but the atmosphere is always intense. And that's what was actually pretty cool. As a whole, game night gets its audience involved on the wild and crazy ride, where there's moments of slapstick intensity and moments that simply erupt into utter chaos. I love the fair balance between comedy, murder mystery, and the intense suspense that comes along with it. So we have a little bit of something for everyone, for everyone's likings. If you're into mystery stuff, there's something there for you. If you like slapstick comedy, we got that. If you like moments that are dark and intense, we got that. If you want something more lighthearted and spontaneous, it's all there. Unfortunately, like I said, as the story goes along, it gets pretty intense. Unfortunately, Brooks eventually gets abducted, and all the other guests assume that it's all part of the game. And if that doesn't get your spine chilled, there's even a threat of murder from some evil-sounding deviant that if the guests don't hand over a precious Fabergé egg leading up to the couples to split up and find the relic, while their paths continue to recross and diverge from time to time. So, yeah, so these guys are all basically under a knife as they are in search of a mysterious Fabergé egg that has something hidden in it. What it is, I don't think I want to give it away. You'll have to see that for yourself. But all I know is that they are risking life and limb for this mysterious aforementioned Fabergé egg, and they need to get it, or else they're gonna get it. Sure, other movies like The Game, among others, tried this formula of carefree fun turning unexpectedly dangerous with the twists and turns that come along before. However, Game Night has some twists that work. Not all, but you'll really get a kick out of the psychology within the characters Perez creates in his script, and the self-discoveries that each character endures as they go on this game that has become a quest for survival. We get a better understanding why Max and Brooks hate each other, and the heartbreak as to why Max and Annie can't have a child. And then, of course, there are other events from their pasts that has haunted them for years. So even though they look like the fun-loving, carefree type, they also seem to have some troubles within their relationships. There's suspicion about whether Michelle has always been faithful to Kevin, which has been bothering him for some time because it was claims that she actually once had an affair with a guy who looks like Denzel Washington, and she even claims that maybe she may have committed a promiscuous act with the actual Denzel Washington, which of course in the end turns out that it's just a Denzel Washington look-alike. There's even some great character development from the supporting cast members who aren't even in the game, including an uncredited cameo appearance from Jeffrey Wright as an FBI agent. We also have Danny Huston as a lowlife, Michael C. Hall as an intimidating criminal who only goes by the name of the Bulgarian. And there's also some great scene stealing from Jesse Plemons as a neighbor who always gets shut out of their game nights because they all think he's strange and loony. And also because of the fact that he's a cop, so that kind of like adds to their level of suspicion towards this individual. And he always wanted to be a part of their games, but they just seem to just shut him out every time. We kind of feel for him, but then there's also part of us that kind of gets creepy vibes of this guy because he's a bit eccentric. So we can understand why they shut him out, but at the same time, you know, I also feel bad for him that he's always left out. Game night should be a night where if a person wants to participate, let them. What harm will it do? The characters in this movie are not all who they appear to be under first impression. But as they go along, we kind of smooth out and we get a better understanding of the views of the characters, be it good guys or bad guys. The movie is practically the perfect film for adults and truly has something for everyone, including the high adrenaline-induced car chase, a violent scene that led to one of the characters having surgery, and an orgy cult-like party that pays homage to the 1999 classic Eyes Wide Shut. But it's still bombarded with issues from characters like aging, sibling rivalry, and being unfaithful. And although that does kind of bring some development into the characters, sometimes I think it might be a bit overkill at times. The best performances definitely come from Jason Bateman and Rachel MacAdams, who seem to have a better understanding of each other, almost as though they were a married couple in real life. They seem to have perfect balance of chemistry. Even though they're playing a married couple, they seem to actually interact like they actually really are a married couple. Jesse Plemons steals every scene he's in, even though his character is played as filler most of the time, but he just really chews up every scene he's in. Through all the tense moments, it never goes by way of melancholy or even preachy. Though many comedies of this caliber goes by way of becoming formulaic, Daley and Goldstein ensure that they've got the tone under control. Thanks, Mom. The upbeat chemistry between Bateman and MacAdams benefits to the plot the way a comedy should be executed. And sure, characters seem to get hurt in situations which can seem deadly in the real world. It still finds the composure to fight back and play the game. The props used to slow down the characters are used as wake-up to inject some sense into them. This is a surprisingly good film that went way beyond my expectations. I'll say one thing about this movie. This movie does not fall under the knife of politically correctness. There is no identity politics in there. And besides that, hey, there is ethnicity in this group. It is diverse, the cast. So, and really, that should even be a thing of matter. This movie is fun. That's all that is. And that is one of the reasons why we all go to the movies. To have fun. To enjoy ourselves. Life doesn't have to be too serious all the time. Life doesn't always have to depend on which side you're on, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatnot. This movie is meant to enjoy ourselves. And I think we should have more movies like this. Ones to sit back, enjoy the ride, and have fun. And I think this movie truly embraces that moment. And I say this movie is an excellent movie to watch. Will it garner any Oscars? Highly doubtful. But hey, not all movies necessarily have to. This is not Shakespeare, and it doesn't have to. Even though the acting is really good, and even though the scenes are handled with caution, the direction is great, the script is excellent, there's a great score. It's a very well-rounded movie as a whole. If I was to give a score out of 10, I would definitely give Game Night a 9 out of 10. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Karate Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.